Okay, so there were a couple of questions that I thought I would start with this morning before completing the topic from yesterday. So somebody is saying that when they were trying to visualize the Buddha's compassionate expression, it triggered the garbage mind of, how can you look at me with such love since I'm stupid, ignorant, worthless, blah, blah, blah. Okay? And then it got into a big thing of, the self-deprecating mind from there. Okay? So what to do? I think first thing is to see that it's just all conceptual mind, something made up by the mind. That's not real. It's just the chattering, distracted mind that has nothing to do with reality. And really challenge that mind and ask yourself, is it saying the truth? Yeah, I'm worthless. Really? Really? Worthless meaning what? What does worthless mean? Yeah. Means I can't do anything? Well, actually, I can do a lot of things. Does worthless mean I can't get a job? Well, I can get a job. What in the world does worthless mean? We might use it to describe ourselves, but what do we actually mean when we say to ourselves, I'm worthless? Have you ever asked yourself that question? No? It's interesting. What do we really mean? I'm unlovable? But there's, if we look, there's certainly people who love us. I'm unlikable? Well, no, there's people who like me. I have no skills. No, I have skills. I can't explain myself very well. Sometimes I can. So to question that mind that's making these kind of outlandish statements about ourselves and ask ourselves what we really mean and if those outlandish statements are actually true. Yeah, really question, That's why it's called don't believe everything you think. Because a lot of what we think is plain old rubbish. And so instead of just accepting it, then, saying, okay, why? Is that true? Does that make sense? And then we very easily see that it's usually just a bunch of nonsense. And it's kind of this old record we've been playing in our mind that, may have come from what adults told us when we were kids, or it may have come from comparing ourselves to other people as we, even now, or it may have come from, having relationships not work out as we had planned. But none of those things mean that we're worthless and, useless. There's bumps on the road of life, but, that doesn't mean that we're wrong, bad, inferior, and all that kind of rubbish. Okay, so, Otherwise, like in this, saying, you're sitting there visualizing the Buddha saying to the Buddha, how can you look at me with such love since I'm stupid, ignorant? If Buddha were sitting in front of you, would you say that to the Buddha? Look, Buddha, you're really dumb. You don't know what I'm really like. You shouldn't look at somebody like me with love and compassion. You're just stupid, Buddha. Are you going to say that to the Buddha if he's sitting in front of you? Please think again. I don't think that would go over so well. Yeah. And Buddha says, yeah, I have equal love and compassion for everybody. And then you're going to say to the Buddha, well, you're just stupid. It's impossible to have equal love and compassion for everybody. So you're going to tell the Buddha he's stupid? Please try that. You know? I mean, just because we have a thought doesn't mean it's true. That's why we're trying to develop wisdom, because so much of what we think is just plain old rubbish. Okay? The next question was, how about using external sense objects for shamatha, specifically visual ones, such as a stone, a blade of grass, a Tibetan letter A, and so forth? What they say to do, both in the Theravada and the Mahayana tradition, is you might look at an external object. In our case, we look at the statue of the Buddha. Then you remember it, you recreate it in your mind. In the Theravada tradition, very often they'll use what's called the kasina, and these are different objects having to relate with colors or materials. So you might have a circle of red or a circle of blue or green or yellow, and you look at it, and but then it's always you close your eyes and you generate that image in your own mind, because it's emphasized very strongly that shamatha is developed by the mental consciousness. It's not developed by the eye consciousness. So it's not a thing of staring at a candle with your eyes open like this, okay? Thinking that just, learning to stare at the candle or stare at the stone without blinking is shamatha. No, it's not like that, okay? So you may have to look at something, but then you're using that image in your mind as the object of shamatha, not the external object. Yeah?
Can I ask a question?
Mm-hmm.
I've noticed when I do as you suggested about remembering the image. Of remembering the image of Buddha. Mm-hmm. My mind can get very involved in spinning a story of the medicine and what it might feel like on me and on other people. I can get involved in the image. Mm-hmm. So there's that. But then there's another piece of it's very different. This first feels very busy, and the second's different. It's just being aware of the light. And there's not the story, there's not the thoughts.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's like this, because at the beginning, you're explaining to yourself a little bit about the qualities of the Buddha. After you become familiar with them, then you don't need to explain that to yourself. You're just aware of that. Yeah, is that what you're?
Mm-hmm. I'm just wondering, because when I recall the details, I often get involved in stories.
Yeah, well, you don't want to go into too much of a story, but you think, oh, medicinal nectar, wow. That symbolizes something, and when you reflect on the symbolism, it makes the visual image of it clearer. Yeah, don't you think? Yeah, unless you get into some, kind of, well, what's that medicinal nectar made out of, and, how does it correspond with Western medicine, and, if you get into that, you're going off. But if you're just kind of letting the meaning of the symbolic meaning affect you, that can strengthen your visualization. Okay, but not lots of chatter about it. Okay. Any other questions? Yeah.
So you can associate maybe a word like compassion to help you bring that visualization, and if it starts to fade, you can restate that word until you stabilize.
Yeah, like if you're visualizing, the image of the Buddha. Yeah, and just, the compassionate face, and if it helps you to, to remember, oh, his face looks compassionate, then, and that word helps you bring up the image, then that's okay. You don't want to get into a lot of verbiage describing everything, but at the beginning, as you go through, you're looking at the different parts and getting a feeling in your mind. So yeah, I think you kind of naturally go beyond that. Okay, so our 5 hindrances, remember them? The one about doubt, I also wanted to say, because here it was saying to contemplate the qualities of the Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha as an antidote to doubt. Also, just watching your breath for a little bit can be good to settle the doubt, because the doubt tends to be a very, very chattery mind. Do you find that? It's quite a noisy mind, and so coming back to your breath for a minute can help settle that noise. How do I know this? How do I prove that? And sometimes you just have to say, well, let's try it and see, because the proof is actually by doing it, isn't it? Yeah. Many things you have to do in order to see if they work. You can't just gain confidence by explaining them to yourself. Yeah. It's like, there's chocolate cake, and are you going to sit there and explain what chocolate cake tastes like to yourself? Yeah. No, you're going to taste it. Then you learn from that. Okay, then the second method that the Buddha proposed in the sutta on the removal of distracting thoughts was examine the danger and the disadvantages of those thoughts. Okay, so I think this is quite good, the danger and disadvantages of those thoughts. So when we get into, for example, all these self-deprecating thoughts, what is the danger of those thoughts? What's the disadvantage of those kind of thoughts?
We'll start believing them and stop practicing.
Yeah, you start believing them and you stop practicing. That's dangerous, isn't it? Because if you stop practicing, where are you going to be? Okay. So you have to, see the disadvantages. And the word danger here, I don't know about you, for me the word danger makes me wake up. Disadvantages, okay, there's lots of disadvantages. But danger has a new meaning. Something's dangerous, I better wake up and take care of it. Okay. Yeah. So what's the danger of letting our mind proliferate with objects of attachment? No danger?
You want them more and more.
Yeah, you want them more and more. And your whole life just gets filled with craving and increased dissatisfaction. Mm-hmm. What's the danger of letting your mind proliferate with thoughts of ill will and anger?
It can really harm somebody.
Yeah.
Unethical conduct.
Yeah, it may turn out that you just go out and harm someone. What's the danger of having aversion to certain situations and just not liking that situation?
More
yeah, you don't grow. And you're in that situation. There's nothing you can do about it. And your mind proliferating makes it worse. You know? And then also you don't grow at all. Okay. What's the danger in letting your intellectual doubt just go on and on and on?
It feeds pride. It feeds pride.
Yeah, it's interesting, isn't it? How sometimes doubt can feed pride. Yeah, I'm so clever that I have all these doubts. I'm so intelligent, I can pick fault with all of this argument. It's interesting, isn't it? How doubt can sometimes correlate with arrogance. What's the disadvantages of dullness? Yeah.
Probably wake up at your deathbed.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, your whole life goes by just spaced out. What's the disadvantages of being drowsy when you're meditating?
You don't meditate.
Yeah, you don't meditate at all. Again, you just create more heaviness, more thickness. What's the disadvantage of the mind that is planning everything? I mean, that's really useful, isn't it? You come out of your meditation with a whole list of the things you have to do, and this, and the order you're going to do them, and, you know, isn't planning in your meditation useful?
If you pay attention, you realize as soon as you stand up, all those plans go away.
Yeah. Usually all those plans go away. Yeah?
The mind that's planning isn't doing.
Yep, for sure.
And it's a feeling of anxiety and you just feed that, and then you lose your time. And to notice that if you do it after, you have a calmer mind, you're more added, more present, and works better. So you lose your time.
Right, so you lose your time, and you come out more anxious. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
One is not present in the moment, nor grateful.
Yeah. Not present and not grateful for having our opportunity. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, in the absence of gratitude, we really waste a lot of time and possibility. Okay, so really thinking about, the danger and disadvantages. Not only now, how those letting those kind of hindrances proliferate in our mind, the danger, the disadvantage now, but also for the future, the kind of habit we're creating in our mind by letting our mind dwell on certain topics. Yeah. And letting our mind just, meditate on how much we can't stand somebody, or meditate on how much we desire somebody else. Yeah. It creates more afflictions in our mind, and then we create more negative karma. And by the force of that negative karma, then, unhappiness comes, not only in this life, but also in future lives. So we're creating the cause for our own misery. Okay, and then also letting these thoughts proliferate obstructs our wisdom. It's very difficult to either generate bodhicitta, love, compassion, or wisdom when we're either falling asleep or planning our next holiday or, desiring something or worrying about something. Okay? How are we going to develop wisdom and compassion when our minds are filled with junk. Okay? And so that junk really, it clouds our mind, and it makes it more difficult for us to actually function in a clean, clear way in our life. You know how you get confused in your life? Anybody know how you get confused? What am I doing? What should I be doing? Why am I doing this? What's going on? I don't understand anything. Well, why is it that we're so confused? You know, because we've until now cultivated junky thoughts. We haven't cultivated wisdom thoughts. We haven't cultivated, clarity about our ethical conduct, or clarity about what's important in life, through realizing that we don't live forever and we're going to die. We haven't spent time thinking, what is important at the time I die? What kind of attitudes do I want to have in my life, in my mind while I'm alive and when I'm at the point of dying? So because we haven't thought about those things, because our mind's been too filled with, I want to go to the beach, and I want to go here, and I want to go there, and I want to do this, and I want to be with that person. I don't want to be with this person. I wish this one would get off my back, and I'm so worried about having a job and getting into grad school. And what am I doing? And all doesn't make sense, and this person's better than me, and so I'm so inferior, and my life is totally useless. Yeah? So how are wisdom and compassion going to develop in a mind with that kind of junk going on in it? Very difficult. Okay? So really, for our own benefit, we have to apply the antidotes to those thoughts. And very often, just thinking of the disadvantages of letting our mind go in a certain direction, if you really think well about the disadvantages, that in and of itself will stop those kind of thoughts. Yeah? When you really sit down and think, what is the danger of me spinning a tale about my insecurity and fear about what's going to happen to me in the next year? Yeah. How am I going to come out from spinning that tale of my insecurity and self-doubt? Am I going to come out wiser? No. Am I going to come out more compassionate? No. Am I going to increase my confusion? Yes. I know this from my own experience. I know it from watching the example of other people in my life whose minds just spin around in worry and insecurity. Do I want to be like those people? Do I want to go down that road? And so really, spending some time thinking about that, and it wakes us up, and it's like, no, I don't want to be that kind of person. I don't want to let my mind go on and on like this. Yeah, I have some incredible, unique potential as a human being with my precious human life, and I want to use it because I know at the time I die, there's no pressing a button and rerunning things and going back a number of years and redoing things. When the time to die comes, I got to go on. There's no pause button. There's no rewind button. So I need to start living the way I want to live, and not say, oh, mañana, no mañana. I'll do it later. I'm young. I'll enjoy life. These things are so interesting. My daydreams are so fascinating. I'll just enjoy all of that. And later, when I'm old, then I'll practice the Dharma. Yeah. How do you know you're going to live to be old? And how do you know when you're old you're going to be able to think straight? Yeah?
I find that my planning is almost like a chess game. If A, then B, C, then D. I get all wound up in thinking of different scenarios and trying to prepare for each conceivable scenario, totally taking me out of the present and getting all wrapped up. And my logic behind that is, well, if I'm prepared for any conceivable scenario, then I will be more prepared to handle those. But most of those scenarios never, of course, take place. But so I just get myself totally wound up in trying to anticipate the next couple moves as if my life is almost like a chess game.
Right. Yep. Ring a bell? Anybody else do that? Yeah. If I move here, then maybe that'll happen, maybe this will happen. If that happens, I can do this and that and the other thing. If this happens, I can do this and that. But maybe I shouldn't move there to start with. I could move here instead. If I move there, then this and this might happen, that and that might happen. And yeah, really like a chess game.
It ties me up in knots.
Yeah. And very little of it happens. What doesn't happen is wisdom and compassion, which, if you are stuck in a difficult scenario, those are the two things that are going to help you. Yeah, but in all your planning, you haven't planned how to have wisdom and compassion to deal with all these alternatives you're anticipating. Yeah. Okay. We're very foolish, aren't we? Yeah. Do you see why the Buddha sometimes called us childish beings? Yeah. Ordinary people like us, me anyway, childish beings. Yeah. Can't think clearly, completely taken by whatever in front of us at the moment. Okay, another a little visualization to do when you're contemplating the disadvantages is to think that all these hindrances are like a carcass of a snake or a dog or a human being that are hanging around your neck. Okay, you got the image? Yeah, you have this dead snake hanging around your neck. Or a dog carcass. Fleas, maggots, smelly. Or a human carcass. Yeah. And, all these kinds of thoughts are really like dead, useless carcasses, aren't they? Letting our mind proliferate in that way. It really is like keeping a dead carcass hanging around our neck that we're schlepping everywhere with us. For what purpose? It's really rather unpleasant. I really like the term proliferating thoughts, letting the thoughts proliferate. Because for me, the word proliferate implies, what else does it usually come with? What do you associate warfare? Warfare. Especially the proliferation of nuclear bombs. I mean, that's when I hear the word proliferate, nuclear bomb. Okay? And then to think, oh, my mind is proliferating in thoughts. And these thoughts are just as dangerous as a nuclear bomb. Sometimes more dangerous, because a nuclear bomb can destroy this life, but it can't harm future lives. letting our mind think in incorrect ways can harm this life and harm future lives, for many, many future lives. Yeah. So we have to have a non-proliferation treaty. Yeah. And not just one that we bargain, like the U.S. and the Soviet Union did. Well, I'll take away 2 if you take away 3. But I've got to stop this. It's really dangerous. Okay, the third method is don't give attention to those thoughts. Okay? Now, it seems like, what kind of advice is this? If I could not give attention to them, it would be easy. So this resembles, in a way, turning our head away from something that we don't like to see. Yeah? So instead of getting engrossed in these thoughts and, immersed in them, sometimes, actually, what we'll do? We'll get into a whole big psychoanalytic trip about our thoughts. I had this thought of attachment, and this, that, and psychoanalyze ourselves back, to when I was in my crib, I had attachment for blue, and then all these years later I have attachment for blue, but the blue object changed.
That's why we have a blue bathroom.
The blankie was blue.
Yeah, the blankie was blue. That's it. Okay, so without getting too psychoanalytic about the whole process, just realize, I really don't want to be thinking about this. Yeah? I really don't want to be thinking about this. And I have a choice. Okay? So I'm going to tell myself not to think about the Buddha. Because you know how it is when somebody tells you don't think about this, what do you think about? So don't think about the Buddha, don't think about the Buddha, don't think about the Buddha. What's appearing to your mind? Okay. So also, in the break time, do something that really gets your mind away from those thoughts. So instead of coming out of your session and taking them with you and more proliferation, go do something in the break time that completely takes your mind away from it. And this is why I think that physical work is very good for us. Yeah, because when you have to work in the forest or work in the garden or, clean out the barn or paint the barn or whatever you're doing, you have to focus on what you're doing. Yeah? You have to really focus on your physical movements to get the task done. And that in and of itself takes our mind away from whatever it was that was bothering us. Okay? So go clean out your garage. You haven't done it in the last 10 years. It might be good. And it'll take your mind off this digging ourselves into a hole. Yeah? Or go jogging, take a walk and look into space. Yeah? Yes?
I heard the advice one time to listen to the thoughts.
That what?
To listen to those thoughts so that you could tell what they were and deal with them. When I start listening for them, they quit.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, don't think of the Buddha. The second I start saying, okay, I'm going to listen to that thought, it's gone.
Interesting. That the next one is kind of similar to that. But that's an interest. When you say listen to the thought, do you mean you just stopping and you're going to listen to like your mind thinking the words and saying the words? Yes, yeah, that would work very well. Because what keeps us involved in the thoughts is that we're paying attention to the content of the thought. That's what's hooking us, is the content of the thought. When we start looking at the thought itself, okay, like I'm going to listen to that thought and listen to myself think that thought, yeah, then it goes away. Or if you ask yourself, where did that thought come from? Like, okay, here I've been having this thought about chocolate cake all along. So this moment of the thought of chocolate cake, where did that moment of that thought come from? Where was that thought before it came into my mind? Where was that image of chocolate cake before it came into my mind? Okay. Very interesting. And then, of course, one moment of thinking of chocolate cake brings another moment, but it brings another moment. So that first moment of thinking about chocolate cake is not present during the second moment of thinking about chocolate cake. So where did that first moment of thinking about chocolate cake go? Where did that thought go? It's not here right now. Where did it go? Did it go somewhere? Where is it? For that matter, where is the thought when I'm thinking about it? Yeah, when I'm thinking about chocolate cake, where is that thought? Yeah, sometimes you get the feeling, well, it's right kind of, a few inches back there. That's where that thought is, but no, that's actually where my sinuses are. Yeah. So just try and, locate the thought. Quite interesting. Okay. Then the fourth one is it's called giving attention to stilling the thought formation of the thoughts. So, for example, you ask yourself, why am I thinking about this? In other words, what are all the factors that led to this thought or emotion coming into my mind? Okay, so I'm involved in anxiety about my job, what I'm doing at work. Okay, what are all the factors involved in producing that anxiety? Okay, why did that thought come into my mind right now? And what are all the factors? Well, I'm remembering what happened on Friday, and I'm anticipating what happened on Monday, and yeah, but why am I getting anxious about those things? Well, because I remembered 15 years ago at that job, and I was getting anxious about this and that, and in other words, try and find every single cause and condition that contributed to that emotion. Yeah, because it's not like an emotion or a thought appears in your mind without any causes. And it's not that there's one cause. Okay. Yeah. Or a second way to do it is to watch the thoughts flow by from a detached viewpoint. Okay? So all the thoughts are it's like watching a bunch of kids at the playground. Yeah. You're standing at the edge of the playground watching all these kids, play and throw sand at each other and run around and and you're just watching, but you're not involved in it. Because see, the hook for us is we get involved in the content of the thought, so we have to take ourselves away from that content. Yeah. So what you proposed, Mott, was quite good in that way. Gonna listen to the thought, or watch myself think that thought, or watch all those thoughts just twirl around. Okay, so that was the fourth method. Then the fifth one, it's translated as crush mind with mind. Okay, in other words, generate a virtuous state of mind that completely overpowers the non-virtuous one. Okay, so think of any kind of virtuous state that you've had and cultivate it, and let that simply overpower the force of whatever your mind is hung up in at that moment. Okay, so we need to apply these kinds of methods often and consistently. Yeah. If we don't, then we let these distractions run wild, and they don't go away by themselves. They basically get worse. Another thing I was thinking of in watching the thought is this thing of where did the thought come from, and what is a thought? Yeah. Thinking about my boyfriend from 10 years ago. Okay, what is that thought? Okay. Yeah. Where is it? What is it? What caused it? When I say I'm thinking about so-and-so, what does that really mean? Okay? So finding a way to look at the thought, that can also be quite helpful. Okay? So you can see all of these techniques revolve in one way or another in not believing everything we think, and realizing that the stuff in our mind is unproductive, and so not letting it take root and proliferate. And after you do this for a while, you get better and better, and it becomes easier and easier. The beginning, it's very difficult. I know for myself, with my anger at the beginning, I had to look at each situation and prove to myself why my anger was uncalled for. So I had to really use the thought training or mind transformation teachings and really prove to myself why my anger was wrong or unsuitable or inappropriate. And until I did that, I couldn't really get rid of it. And until I did that, I couldn't really watch the thought of the anger. The way my mind is, I have to prove to myself that something's wrong before I'm going to let it go. Especially anger. How you've built it up and you have all these reasons. Why my anger is justified. They did this, they did that, they did this. Any sane person would be angry, and otherwise they would take advantage of me. And it's for their own good that I have to retaliate. We have all these reasons. Yeah. At least I do, I have this lawyer going on. A lawyer, a prosecutor, a judge, and a jury. There's no defense system for the other person. But I have a prosecutor, a judge, and a jury, and I will try them again and again, giving all the reasons to prove them guilty, and send them to get executed. And I need to prove to myself why that way of thinking is completely unsuitable and wrong. And then when I can, okay, let it go. So that gets back to, what are the disadvantages for me of thinking like this? Yeah, what are the disadvantages to others of thinking like this? Why do I need to get mad at this situation? So-and-so did this, so what? Why do I need to get mad about it? There's no law saying I must get angry when so-and-so, somebody insulted me. Why do I need to get bent out of shape about it? Well, because anybody would get bent out of shape if they were insulted like that. Well, that might be true, but why do I need to? Do I really want to be like everybody else? What good does it do me to get bent out of shape because somebody insulted me? Okay? So you keep asking yourself, with developing your wisdom mind to try and justify these thoughts. Okay? And then you eventually can break through and see how ridiculous they are. Okay? So, when you're trying to focus on the Buddha, and you have a distraction come up, first thing you do is just try and move your mind back, to your object of meditation. If that works, fine. You don't need to do anything else. Yeah. If not, then you may have to temporarily leave the object of meditation in order to apply one of these 5 that we just discussed. After applying that, then you can go back to your object of meditation. Sometimes, you are off your object of meditation so long because your mind is really entrenched in a very strong affliction at that time. Okay? And so what that's telling us is that we really need to do more work doing the analytic meditations on the stages of the path, the Lamrim, and more work on meditating on thought transformation. Okay? Because when we do those analytic meditations, it helps us learn how to think clearly and think properly. When those correct ways and the correct perspectives are well ingrained in our mind and, familiar in our mind and trained in our mind, then very easily we can think them and overpower that disturbing emotion, or that unwanted thought. But until we really have that perspective and that different viewpoint, it's very difficult to overpower the thoughts. Okay? So I think that's one of the reasons why His Holiness really emphasizes, doing lots of analytic meditation, throughout our practice in order to develop a clean, clear understanding and become familiar with that. Okay? Then there's some other mental factors that we need to develop, or that gradually develop as we progress in our development of shamatha. Okay, so one is our mindfulness is going to increase. Okay, and that's remembering the object, holding the object in mind, and so that's related to 2 other mental factors. One's called coarse engagement, and the other one's refined engagement. And coarse engagement is the mind that puts your attention on the object, and sustained or refined engagement keeps your attention there. Okay, so you're going to develop those together with your mindfulness. Your mental factor of introspective awareness you want to develop. And so, because mindfulness and introspective awareness are so important in your meditation, you want to develop those two mental factors in your daily life. So you develop mindfulness by holding in mind your precepts, your internal values and principles, how you want to be in the world, how you want to act, holding those in your mind, remembering those, whatever situation you're in, okay, during the day, during the break time. And then having this one of introspective awareness, that's being aware of, well, what am I doing right now? And why am I doing this? Okay, what am I saying? Why am I saying this? What am I looking at in the break time? And why am I letting myself look at this? Yeah. One retreat center where I used to teach had a note board. And everybody at the break time would go down to see if there was a note for them. Yeah? And then they would get their cup of tea. And then, because it was a retreat center, so it had the notices of all the future retreats. And it had all the, they had bulletin boards with stuff. Then the people would get their tea and they would reread the flyers about the future retreats again and again and again, and they would reread the the statement from the government to the employees, that has to be up on the wall, and they would reread the refund policy, just anything to fill their mind with some kind of content while they're drinking their tea. Yeah, and then they would think of some other crucially important note that they had to write to somebody. Yeah.
Look at the bulletin board.
So after a while, I kind of banned the note board. Yeah, and I said, if you're going to read something, read a Dharma book. That will increase your wisdom. Yeah. And these are the specific Dharma books you can read. No, you cannot read Alexander David Neal's book. No, you cannot read Lobsang Rampa's book. Those are not going to help you in the middle of retreat. They're going to create more chattering in your mind. Huh?
I don't know what they are.
Oh, good. Don't go look them up now. Okay. So also, as your meditation increases, another mental factor called rapture will increase, and it's a feeling, it's a delight in that arises because you're interested in the object. Okay, so as you concentrate, instead of the object becoming boring, it becomes more interesting. Your meditation becomes interesting. You have this sense of delight, of involvement with it. Okay? As your mind settles down and really gets concentrated, it becomes very peaceful, very tranquil, very blissful. Okay? So those feelings also increase. Those mental states or mental factors also increase. And then, of course, your one-pointedness of mind is going to increase. Yeah. Your ability to stay focused on an object is going to increase. Okay. So there's lots of different mental factors. The power of these mental factors is going to increase as your mind gets more and more focused and more peaceful. Okay. And because of the peace that samadhi brings, then it becomes easier to do meditation on other topics too, because you aren't so distracted. Okay? So, I think that's it for this time. Yeah. We do this retreat every year, and so the material I cover differs every year because there's quite a bit to say. I was this time giving it a lot from the Theravada perspective, but it overlaps a lot from the Mahayana perspective. We didn't go into very much about the objects of meditation because that can take a long time, in and of itself. Okay, but hopefully this will give you enough to take home with you and use in your daily practice. Okay. Yeah?
Were there any particular texts you were working from or referring to?
This time, a lot of this material is in the Visuddhimagga. It's called The Path of Purification by Acharya Buddhaghosa. It's not easy reading. Okay, another good book from the Mahayana viewpoint is Genlam Rinpoche's book. What's it called?
Calming the Mind.
Calming the Mind? Yeah, they republished it.